During this time of transition, obviously you have a lot of those people who are outside the church who wish harm on the church. You hear it, Catholics hear it all the time, the church being abused, and then that causes those within the church to be scared and afraid and worried. During this time of transition, what are the promises of Christ for his church that we can rest assured in and have faith in during this time of transition?
Well, I think the first way I would respond to that is by saying that I remember the last conclave, and you remember that as well, I'm sure, even if at that time maybe you weren't as interested as you would be now. But the whole world was interested. Whether you like it or not, he's the vicar of Christ. He is the vicar of the entire world, over the entire world. And so people have a sense of that, whether they know it or not. The loss of John Paul II was the loss of a father for the whole world. And people were glued to find out who was going to be the next pope. I mean, every station covered it. So I'd say that in some ways it's a time in which people are somewhat solicitous and open to listening to what the church has to say, because they're not just putting it on some quote-unquote, as they would want to say, an old man in the Vatican. They feel themselves bereft of a father, whether they can put their finger on it or not. But during the time, of course, it's not a man-made institution. If it was, then we'd be in a lot of trouble. It is made up of men and women, to be sure, sinners all, at least in this world. But if you have, as we believe, a body whose head is Jesus Christ, when they hear you, they hear me, he says, and the Holy Spirit will lead them into all truth. That's a huge promise, and a promise that means that he is the one who ultimately guides and directs and sanctifies his own church. So despite what may seem as a tenuous time, a fearful time, waiting for the next Holy Father, etc., it never ceases to be Christ's body. Right? When we don't have a visible vicar on earth, it's not as if the head is dislocated from the body.